there's some out here. Oh, here. Hi, Jim. And how are you? Yeah. Good to see you. All that instead of you.
that mean it's on? Good morning. Welcome to our multi-platform worship service. I'm Fern Culhane, and I use she and her pronouns. Hopefully, eventually, my voice will kick in. Here at the Unitarian Universalists of Mount Airy, we acknowledge the Lenape and the Haudenosaunee as the original stewards of Pennsylvania, including our land right here at Stetton Avenue. We also want to remember the history of the forced labor of both Indigenous Americans and Africans in Pennsylvania. It's my honor to be co-leading our service today with Mary LaValle, Kathy McCoubry, and Bruce Pollock Johnson. Hello, Bruce. We want to thank Anam Owili Aguirre on piano, Monica Alba Rodriguez for leading the choir, and Connor Sheehan for running our AV system today. We are also grateful for our religious exploration staff, Elizabeth Ann Terry and Jill Sutherland, who will provide programming for our youth if we get any today. A few small announcements before we begin. Please silence any cell phones so that we may all be as present as possible in this space. Restrooms are located at the rear of the sanctuary down the stairs to the right or the mechanical lift to the left. An usher can help you navigate either option. We are streaming live, and if you are joining us online, you can choose to toggle on the closed captions by clicking the CC button at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Lastly, the board will offer a brief monthly update in the sanctuary immediately following the postlude for anyone who's interested. That wasn't really in the script, but I like it. This is a UU congregation, which means we are people of many differences, different faith traditions, different racial identities, different gender expressions, and all different ways of moving in and showing up in the world. And we are people of togetherness who make covenant promises to be together and to act with love for transformation, liberation, and healing. We're currently in the middle of our annual stewardship campaign when we collect pledges for our upcoming fiscal year. Pledges from members and friends help us to develop our budget proposal, which will be presented at the annual congregational budget meeting on May 18th. Please join me in welcoming our member, Beth Orell, to share her testimony about why she supports UUs of Mount Airy.
Okay, well, I was poor and I tithed once upon a time, and I'm not poor anymore and I still tithe. Is it on? Okay. When I was poor, I pledged. I still pledge. It was easier then, but I decorate my home at home and I spend money on it. And this is my home, so I spend money on it too. And when I give to my homes, they give back to me in unknown ways, but it's kind of magic. So if you have an inkering and if you haven't given before, try it. Give something and watch that week for what's going to come back to you, because it will. And it might be something monetary or it might be something non-monetary. But you know, springtime is, we all get something out of the flowering trees, and things like that. But pledging is like that. You plant your seed and it grows, and you see the beauty of it. So that's why I pledge.
Thank you, Beth. Let us begin our worship together with the poem Listen by Yuri Yamamoto, read by Mary LaValle.
How's that? Can you hear me? Oh, okay. Thank you.
Oh,
Good, thank you. Good morning, everybody. Listen. Listen to my story, so you may know me better, better, better. I'm sharing a story of my own choice. For this brief moment, I ask you to suspend your own voice, and with no judgment, assumptions, or distractions, let my story seep into your heart. When the time comes for you to speak, I will do my part to listen. Listen to your story, so I may know you better, better, better. Listen, listen to our stories, so we may know us better, better, better. Listen, listen, listen.
Thank you, Mary. In UU congregations, we light a chalice to celebrate our coming together in love, to mark the sacred space and time of our community, and invite the Spirit into our lives. We invite you to light a candle wherever you are today and read along with us here in the sanctuary. Together, we will read the chalice lighting words by Reverend David Eaton as Kathy lights our chalice through the magic. To be creative, we must begin to nurture sensibilities to all sources, not just those that are respected and safe. We must be open to every human possibility, to truth from every source, not just from scholars and persons we consider enlightened. We must learn to recognize truth, regardless of where it may originate and from whom it may come. Thank you. This is confusing. Our opening hymn is number 1018, which is in the teal hymnals that you do have there, but we will have the text here. Come and go with me. We invite you to stand in body or rise in spirit as we sing this hymn together. Thank you, Anam. It's now time for an important segment of our worship service called Joys and Sorrows. Part of being a community is learning to share the authentic and vulnerable parts of ourselves with others, to see and be seen, to know and to be known. We make space today for that sharing, all of which helps to build this congregation into beloved community. We invite you to share what's going on in your life, to name your feelings and the people on your heart in need of prayer, good energy, best wishes, and other help. We build community by celebrating our good things and mourning our troubles, taking risks, and listening deeply. For our online sharing, we invite you who are on Zoom to share what you are feeling this week and to lift up the names of those about whom you are thinking in the chat. If you would like us to share your joy or sorrow out loud, please include the word share in your message. For those of us here in the sanctuary, we ask that you come up one at a time by the side aisle. Pick up a stone or stones from the basket at the back of the sanctuary, and as you hold your stone, you may infuse it with your joy or sorrow before placing it in the bowl of water, where the energy will ripple out to be held by all of us. This morning, we invite you to take a moment to witness how your stone nestles next to the stones of others, and how all are surrounded by the water that symbolizes our community's shared grief and joy. If you'd like to share something aloud, please speak directly into the microphone and be mindful that we are broadcasting to the internet. All are welcome to participate in any of these ways, and for those who have gathered virtually, Kathy will add stones on your behalf. After our stones have come to rest, we will sit in silence and hold all these joys and sorrows together. The sacred space of deep sharing is open.
I'm Beth. I'm going to Italy next week, and as is my custom, I give based on how much I walk. So this time I'm giving for my brother for the ALS Association. He is now wheelchair bound and can't speak. So I don't know if he'll make it to as old as I am.
I'm Sandy Fulton. I'm a member of this church, and I have been for a number of years now. And I want to say how upset I was 2 days ago when I read about the Smithsonian being turned into a place of lies and hatred. And I hope that you all saw that, and I hope that you are also an admirer, as I am, of the person who put together the Smithsonian Museum of History and Culture for African Americans. I was at that beautiful place with a group of others from here and others from other UU churches and other churches that weren't UUs, that just, were friends. And we all got so much out of that. It registered in me forever, I think, and I turned the person behind that, Lonnie Bunch, into one of my great heroes, one of the saints of our day. And I started crying 2 days ago, and I can't stop now. It is people like him who tell the truth, who are being hurt. What I thought I would do was ask everybody here to write to Fetterman, our senator, and say, what is going on with you? You know, what are you doing to stop this? And why are you not stopping it? So if you have any access to his address, and send it to his office here in Philadelphia. I'm going to do that. And it is going to be something that I cherish doing, because I don't think he's really much in touch with us anymore. So let's get something good for Lonnie Bunch.
I'm Sharon, and I'm going to start with the joy. It's my birthday today. But in a segue to what Sandy was talking about, you'll notice in your bulletin there's something about the hands-off protest, which is something you can do to raise your voice about all the stuff that's going on. It's on April 5th, and I happen to belong to a group called Voices Rising Philadelphia that was started by our own Jane Halting in 2017, and we sing at protest marches all the time, and we've been invited to this march to be the kickoff singers at the Independence Mall side of this. So the march starts at City Hall, but it ends at Independence Mall, and Voices Rising Philadelphia, we rehearsed yesterday. We're going to be singing probably 5 songs at the end of the march when you get to the Independence Mall part. So please join in.
Hi everybody, I'm Monica. My sorrow today is for a friend of mine who lost her grandmother recently, so she's up with her family in Massachusetts, so if you can just keep them in your thoughts. And my joy today is that my sister Dee is visiting, so she's here with her boyfriend Seamus, so maybe you can say hi after the service.
Hello, my name is Lila. My joy is that my birthday's tomorrow, and my wonderful husband has been working really hard to plan a party at our house next weekend, so I'm very excited for that, and thank you.
Bernadette, after 12 cycles of chemo for Gary, we're going to take a break and go renew our minds, hearts, spirits, and bodies in Costa Rica. But what Gary would really giggle at this, but his biggest concern is her dog, Norman. So Norman's going to stay at my sister's, so if you could keep our safety and healing in mind, but really that Norman does okay and he's happy. Gary's going to make a video for Norman so he can hear his voice every day, after I told him he couldn't call Norman every day. Yeah.
My name is Barbara, and I had such a joy last weekend. I visited my first granddaughter, and then her 2 very special children, which are my greats. Wow. I, like Norman, just continued to hear their laughter. It was great.
In my sharing, I thought I would sing an off-pitch happy birthday to you for just a couple seconds. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to today my heart is kind of smoldering because of all the transitions. I've lost two very close friends this week. And a very dear, another friend of mine had a stroke. And I'm just watching the transitions that we're moving through. And I'm just observing, I'm just being a witness. Ashe.
I'm Gary. I'm just concerned. My father's having back surgery tomorrow. It's fairly routine, but you know, any surgery when someone's in their 70s is a risk, so that's just been weighing a lot on my eye.
Hey, I'm Chrissy. So my this is BB, and Valentina's back there. She snuck away. Anyway, my mom had a fall a couple weeks ago, and she hit her head. So hold on. We're doing better. So she was in the ICU at first, and it was like a couple weeks. We had to get her transferred to a rehab. And it was a lot of back and forth with insurance issues, like trying to get her not to break out of the hospital to wait for to go through so she could go to the rehab. So she's doing good now. It's just been a whirlwind of like a week of just trying to get her settled at home. She was discharged and not too early. The doctors wanted her to stay, but it was denied. And so I was with her this weekend getting her settled, and we did get an aide lined up who I met yesterday. She'll be there 24 hours. She's still really at risk for a fall, like very high risk for a fall. So she has to have 24-hour care, which we can't really provide. So the aide seemed lovely, super amazing disposition, like perfect for the job. And my mom was like really relaxed with her because she was very antagonistic with any other care workers. So she's still mad at her sister for like not breaking her out of the hospital. So it's just been a lot to navigate and kind of new just because she's 70, so you know, it's just I'm in a weird position with like young children and like an aging mom and having to care for both. So we've been trying to get through it. So yeah, but I don't know. I think we're doing a pretty good job. I know it's been pretty great, and it's nice to see you.
Hi, everyone. My heart is full today for a number of reasons. One is that our son Jaj is having a needle biopsy into his lung on Tuesday. And he's a classical saxophonist. And so we think all is well, and we will intend that all be well. And I would appreciate your intentions along that way as well. Second of all, our dear friend Laura just got deported from the United States. She was here illegally, and it's a long story, but basically she had to appear before the judge on March 18th, and he kicked her out. So at least he gave her 4 months, so she doesn't have to leave until July, but she has now bought her tickets. And it's very heart-wrenching. She is no criminal. She's a wonderful person. Anyway, so then our friend Brenda just took off last night for Iran. She's always wanted to see the amazing sights of Persia. And so at first she canceled the trip, it's a 3-week trip to Iran, traveling all over, because she read the State Department was red, do not travel to this country. So she canceled, but 2 days ago she said, I'm going. So she turned it around, and now she's on the plane. She has not yet landed in Qatar. But anyway, so thinking about her as well, and for her safety. The other thing is we're having a music house at our house this afternoon. Some of us here are coming. If anyone else would like to come, it's at 3:30. And it's a singer-songwriter group called 3 people, 7 instruments, called Mad Agnes. So, thank you.
Kathy is going to add stones, or please do that from the chat. Thank you. And now, would you please add a stone for all those joys and sorrows that are not shared out loud, but are held in the sacred quiet of our hearts? Thank you all. Let us now welcome Elizabeth Ann, while she's still laughing, for today's story for all ages.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Elizabeth Ann Terry, your Director of Religious Exploration, and so happy to be here with y'all today. And at our staff meeting this week, we were talking about the story for all ages and landed on Woody Guthrie. Can I get an amen? Amen. Yes. And Woody had on his guitar, "This machine kills fascists." And I just love it, love it, love it. And an image that I have, you probably won't be able to see, but this is from Sandy, the Smithsonian Institute. That image right there. So I passed out some percussion instruments. We're going to have fun singing along with This Land Is Your Land, the song that I personally think needs to be the national anthem, but I'm just one woman.
Did you want to tell the story about the sign?
You want to tell the story?
The way that it came up in staff meeting is that, Desi was saying, I keep seeing people go over in the playground, and we have that no trespassing sign. Is it okay for them to be there? And we all said, of course, we want the neighborhood to use the playground. And I said, well, let's remove the sign. And Elizabeth Ann said, no, wait, let's let the children remove the no trespassing sign. So in this song, This Land Is No Land, there's a verse about a trespassing sign. Stay tuned for that.
This land is your land, this land is my land, from California to New York Island, from the Redwood Forest
Please sing
to
along.
the Gulf Stream waters. This land was made for you and me. As I was walking that ribbon of highway, I saw above me that endless skyway.
children to join Elizabeth Ann, and we're going to sing them out with words and music by Bruce Pollock Johnson.
With coats and shoes on, we're gonna.
As you leave this place, know that you belong. Know that you are not alone. Know that you are loved. As you leave this place, know that you belong. Know that you are not alone. Know that you are loved. Good morning. I'm Kathy McCoubry, moderator of the board at UU's of Mount Airy and a member of the Beloved Conversations cohort. Holy hell, what is going on in this country? What are we doing? I ask these questions seriously to remind us of what we do know, that as a country, we have never fully owned our story of chattel slavery and centuries of violence and subjugation, nor have we recognized the human and financial cost and harm done by our system of white supremacy. We have yet to even listen, much less acknowledge the debts of our economy. And now we have nuclear racism obliterating our pluralistic society, fueled by the unchecked greed for wealth and power of straight white men with a penchant for Christian nationalism. We do know this story. We have been writing it ever since a colonist scratched the dirt of the first plantation. We also know stories of resistance and organizing and the great struggles for freedom and the rights of workers, women, children, voters, immigrants and asylum seekers, for peace with justice and for the health of the planet. Remember these stories too. You might also ask yourself, what stories do I have a part in, either intentionally or inadvertently? This morning, members of the Beloved Conversations cohort are here to talk about anti-racism at UU's of Mount Airy and to invite you to find your way into the story of this congregation as we learn to recognize and challenge the dominance of white cultural norms, to center the voices and spiritual needs of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, along with our LGBTQIA+ siblings, and to practice radical hospitality. So Beloved Conversations is a program that was created by the Meadville Lombard Theological School to help dismantle racism within individuals, congregations, and society at large. A couple dozen of us participated in the original version about 10 years ago. In the fall of 2022, a multi-year program was initiated with a similar sized group which addressed the personal impacts of racism in affinity groups by racial self-identification. The following year, 18 people committed to the next stage of anti-racism work at the congregational level. Major concepts included the use of covenants, emotional dynamics and conflicts in congregational systems, impacts of white supremacy culture, and centering Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. The year culminated in an assessment of where we saw UU's of Mount Airy on a spectrum from mainstream to multicultural to anti-racist practices in each area of congregational life. And this year, we've chosen the area of governance and shared leadership as our initial focus to identify how we can become more anti-racist in our structure and processes. Within this area, we realized that we had a significant weakness as a congregation in dealing with conflict. And we recognized conflict avoidance as one of the prevalent characteristics of white supremacy culture. Consequently, the cohort is learning about the practice of right relations and working toward a proposal for the board. So you'll be hearing more about that. The Beloved Conversations program is designed to equip congregations to continue this process of self-assessment, organizational development, and spiritual growth independently, so that we can go on to apply our knowledge and skills of anti-racism in other areas of congregational life. We expect that this work will also inform the outcome of the strategic planning process, which is being driven by your input through the recent survey and the upcoming discussion groups. UUs of Mount Airy can move toward beloved community, replacing the old ways that alienate ourselves from each other and from our neighbors with new ways of loving and being in the world. Let's write our own story of the dignity and worthiness of each of us in our time and place, a story of solidarity in the face of the onslaught. In the second reflection this morning, Bruce will talk further about the relational and spiritual aspects of this work. It's also important to note that our congregational journey toward beloved community is broader than this program, and that we have room for new stories and new storytellers. And now we're going to invite the choir to share some special music.
hear Bruce Pollock Johnson's reflection on wholeness, beloved community, accountability, and right relations. I can't say greetings yet. As
You see and hear me?
We can hear you. Greetings.
Great. And is the video coming through too?
All good. It's a miracle.
Video there?
Yes.
Great. Good morning, UUs of Mount Airy. My name is Bruce Pollock Johnson. My pronouns are he, him, his, and I'm the assistant moderator of our congregation. I'm a cis, straight, upper middle class, educated, mostly able-bodied man with Northern European ancestors and light skin. And I try to leverage the privileges those identities are given by our society as I work to dismantle the systems that created them. I've been a member here for 35 years, have coordinated the Folk Factory Coffee House with my wife Linda for the same amount of time, co-authored the 8th Principle with Paula Cole Jones in 2013, served as moderator for a couple of years, and have been active in racial justice work in our congregation and beyond for a couple of decades. Our mission here at UUs of Mount Airy is building beloved community by embracing all souls and nurturing wholeness. In 2017, we as a congregation adopted the 8th Principle, which reads, journeying towards spiritual wholeness by building a diverse, multicultural, beloved community by our actions that accountably dismantle racism and other repressions in ourselves and our institutions. We often use terminology like beloved community, wholeness, and accountability at UUs of Mount Airy. But what do we really mean by that? Let's take some time now to clarify and explore them. Beloved community was a concept created by a philosopher theologian named Josiah Royce and popularized by Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. It refers to a vision of a society characterized by justice, equality, and love, where all people are treated with dignity and respect, free from prejudice and discrimination. It is an aspiration that may never be fully realized, but that we can always strive towards. This squares perfectly with the first UU principle of the inherent worthiness and dignity of every person, and the new nationally adopted UU values of justice, equity, and love at the center. What do we mean by wholeness and spiritual wholeness? Wholeness refers to a person's feeling free to be their whole, authentic self at all times. It could also be applied at the congregational level, but is probably most important at the individual level. In our Beloved Conversations resources for Among the Congregational Level program, there were 2 books. One is called UUs of Color, Stories of Struggle, Courage, Love, and Faith, edited by Yuri Yamamoto, Chandra Snell, and Tim Hamami, published in 2017 by Skinner Books, and consists of UUs of color of all kinds sharing their experiences in UU congregations, good, bad, and ugly. The other book is called Centering, Navigating Race, Authenticity, and Power in Ministry, edited by Mitra Rahnema, also published in 2017 by Skinner Books, and is similar, but it focuses on writings by UU religious professionals of color for UU religious professionals of color. It would be great if everyone in our congregation could read at least the first book to have a deeper understanding of the range of experiences of people of color in UU cultures. The reason I mention these books at this point is that it was clear in both of them that one of the most painful experiences for people of color in UU environments was feeling that they could not be their whole selves in their congregations. For example, by feeling like token members of committees or being asked to represent their race. To me, spirituality is about connectedness to ourself, to others, to communities, to nature, to the world, to the universe. When we feel that we need to act in a way that does not feel consistent with our true, authentic soul, we are disconnected with ourself. And I consider that a spiritual injury, a lack of wholeness. To give a specific example, in the book Centering, Reverend Susan Newman Moore talks about initially having to write 3 sermons for her UU congregation. The first was the sermon she really wanted to give. The second was the sermon she thought UUs could handle, removing some references to God and the Bible, for example. And the third was the version she felt she needed to give to stay employed at her congregation, due to concern about being seen as too radical. This is an example of a person not being able to be their whole self because of UU culture. The good news is that by her 6th year at All Souls in DC, she was able to give that first sermon that she really wanted to give. This exemplifies both the problem with UU culture, as it can be, even at a diverse congregation, as well as the promise for UU culture to change and grow and provide true spiritual wholeness for people. In my mind, our goal as a congregation is to create a culture where any minister or potential member of color or with any kind of marginalized identity, LGBTQIA+, woman, working class, Christian, etc., or in general anyone, should feel immediately that they can be their whole authentic self with us. At the same time, all of us, whatever our skin color, have been conditioned by the culture we grew up in here in the USA to internalize some of the norms of white supremacy culture, such as urgency, fear of open conflict, individualism, paternalism, defensiveness, denial, power hoarding, the right to comfort, either-or binary thinking, quantity over quality, fear, objectivity, worship of the written word, I'm the only one, and progress is bigger or more. These as enumerated by Tema Okun. These norms come mainly from European cultures and contribute to the structures and beliefs that created and maintain systemic racism. For people with light skin like me, they help create a world that gives us undeserved privileges, wealth, and power compared to those with darker skin. Before the end of the Civil War, and to some extent continuing to the present, these privileges and power were codified in law and enforced by brute force. They were based on the belief that people with lighter skin are inherently superior to people with darker skin. Even after legal slavery was abolished, these beliefs persisted and got codified in Jim Crow laws and discriminatory practices in housing, banking, employment, Social Security, the GI Bill, and voting rights. Many of these inequities got corrected with the Civil Rights and Voting Rights Acts resulting from the Civil Rights Movement, but many inequities continue in the form of mass incarceration and law enforcement and in many other areas. And gains from civil rights legislation have been eroded in recent decades, especially in voting rights, and face radical regression with the new administration's attempts to erase diversity, equity, and inclusion gains, as Sandy has so eloquently spoken to. For UUs like me, with lighter skin, these systemic inequities represent moral injury because we are enjoying privileges and benefits that betray our deeply held values, such as the inherent worthiness and dignity of every person, and justice, equity, and love. It means that we are not living in alignment with our true, deeper selves. We are not spiritually whole. Systemic racism is set up so that the structures are in place to maintain inequity and injustice and are maintained until people take action to dismantle and change those systems. In other words, being oblivious to or ignoring the system and the problems maintains the system and the problems, and so contributes to them. For UUs with darker skin, the harms from systemic racism are more obvious and direct, but some of the beliefs can still be, and almost inevitably are, absorbed unconsciously and manifest as internalized racism, such as light skin colorism, which is clearly also a moral and spiritual harm. Making changes at the national level is important and difficult, and we can try to do our part. But we can very directly control our own systemic patterns and structures as a congregation, and try to align them with our principles and values. And we can do the same with our individual beliefs and behaviors. We can do all that we can to make ourselves whole as a congregation and as individuals. Mahatma Gandhi advised us to be the change that you want to see in the world. And Adrienne Marie Brown tells us that the world is fractal and that work at the local level is also work at the national and global level. So what can we do? We've already committed ourselves to the values of justice, equity, love, beloved community, and dismantling racism and other oppressions in our mission and in our adoption of the 8th principle. We have also clarified how we want to be together in our congregational covenant, which includes covenanting, quote, to resolve our misunderstandings in the spirit of love and accountability by working honestly through conflicts directly with those involved in a spirit of kindness and understanding, and offering and accepting apologies and forgiveness, unquote. What is meant by accountability? Piper Anderson, in one of our Among resources, says that there are 3 levels of accountability. One is individual self-accountability, where we hold ourselves responsible to ourselves for living consistently with our true deepest self, for being whole. A second level is mutual accountability, which means that rather than having a hierarchical, punitive approach to violations of covenant, we communicate with each other when it seems something might have happened that was not consistent with our covenant, such as if we were harmed in some way, and work together to get back into covenant with each other. In this sense, we are accountable to each other and help each other live consistently with our principles, values, and covenants. The third level of accountability is community accountability. This refers to setting up systems and structures and a culture that support maintaining our covenants, values, and principles, supporting those who have been harmed, and helping to ensure those harms have been addressed and repaired. As the principles of the reparations movement specify, whether repair has happened or not must be determined by the party that was harmed. Thus, in our anti-racism and anti-oppression work, we hold ourselves accountable to those who have been harmed, those with marginalized identities, to ensure that what we are doing is truly repairing the harm. Putting love at the center in all of this means focusing on relationships rather than rules or abstractions. When harm has happened, there is a breach in a relationship which needs to be repaired. Thus, the focus is on understanding the harm, apologizing, repairing the harm as much as is possible, and committing to changes that will prevent the harm in the future. This is true for one-on-one relationships and for the reparations movement. An example of this kind of work occurred just a couple of weeks ago. Lori Durkin had set up a meeting to work on the mission statement for the Justice Council. I had sent an email with my suggested edits to the group a short time before the meeting and displayed it as we discussed those and other possible changes. Lori had the courage to write to me later and express her discomfort that I, as a white male with privileged identities, had taken more responsibility than she felt was appropriate. I apologized and took a back seat at the next meeting. This was a perfect example of mutual accountability. Lori helped me see the harm I had done, and I apologized and changed so that it would not happen again. Our Among team selected governance and shared leadership as a general area where we want to focus our anti-racism efforts first. Piper Anderson indicated that an effective anti-racism program needs to have systems and structures to deal with violations of covenant. Many UU congregations and the UUA overall have what is called a right relations team to deal with conflicts that are not able to be resolved by the individuals involved. These teams are trained to help people uncover and communicate harms, listen deeply to all involved, and encourage apologies and forgiveness, as well as commitments to changes to try to prevent reoccurrences and to follow up. In recent years, we've had a few situations where having a right relations team and process in place would have been very helpful. We managed to simulate the process in an ad hoc kind of way, but would have been preferable to have a structure and process in place to be able to deal with these kinds of issues in the future in a timely and effective way. One possibility our Among team is exploring is whether we want to create a right relations team here at UU's Mount Airy. In conclusion, we as a congregation have done a good job of expressing our mission and vision of beloved community with justice, equity, and love at the center. To continue this work and to nurture our spiritual wholeness as a congregation and as individuals, we need to make sure our structures, systems, and culture help to make our actions match our words, to hold ourselves accountable to ourselves, to each other, and to communities who have been harmed by our actions or lack of action. That is what our Among team is working on, and we look forward to working with all of you to build beloved community by embracing all souls and nurturing wholeness together. Ashe, and blessed be.
Thank you, Bruce. It is time for the offertory, but of course there's the explanation first. Now is the time when we collect our offering of financial resources for the good of this community and beyond. I have my props. We know there are many ways to give back to this congregation, and we encourage you to find a way that works for you. To give financial support for our congregational operations, paper money or checks may be put in the plate. In addition, your pocket change or a contribution can be placed in an envelope and marked C for C. I like to make it a little more difficult. I like to write one check, but Mike, our bookkeeper, is very good at separating how much of the check goes to my pledge, how much goes to change for change. So there are many ways that you can accomplish this. Change for Change this month, our recipient is the Unitarian Universalist Disaster Relief Fund. Information is on the screen about how to give online, yay, using the Vanco mobile app. Please know that if this is your first time with us, there's no expectation that you give anything other than a completed Connect card. It should be in your pew. You can fill that out and leave it. I know the plate is coming now, but you can just hand it to one of us and we will take care of it. We want to know more about you and how we may support you. Our offering will be greatly accepted. you all, but thank you enough. It's now time for the chalice releasing. As we get ready to extinguish our chalice and end our time together this morning, we invite you to remain in the sanctuary for a brief update from the board. You are also welcome to head downstairs for our coffee hour. Following the update, folks on Zoom are welcome to check in with each other. For more information on what's going on in the life of this congregation, you can check our weekly newsletter, our website, and our social media pages for upcoming events and information. Now Mary is going to lead us in a responsive reading on the screen as the chalice is extinguished. These words were adapted from our Work for Social Justice by Elizabeth Nuyet.
Okay, no, not okay. There we go. As Unitarian Universalists, our journey is to transform the big and the small, to transform ourselves and to transform the world. Universalism means no one is outside of the circle of love and no one is disposable.
No one is outside the circle of love and no one is disposable.
We stubbornly seek out the spark of the divine in each other, no matter what. Interdependence means none of us is truly free until we are all free, and our thriving is bound up in the earth's thriving.
None of us is truly free until we are all free.
We struggle for liberation from the violence of white supremacy, sexism, ableism, classism, and heterosexism. Our covenants mean we make promises to our communities to honor love and justice above all else.
We make promises to honor love and justice above all else. Thank you, Mary. Our closing hymn is number 155, Circle Round for Freedom. It's fun. We invite you to stand in body or rise in spirit as we sing this hymn together. Our closing words were adapted from Psalm 121 by the Reverend Ali K.C. Bell. We are the keepers of each other. We are our shade and we are our healing light. We are the keepers of each other. We are our aid and we are our salvation. We are the keepers of each other. We are the weavers, and we are the web. May we remember, may we act, may it be so. Ashe, Amen. You're welcome to go downstairs for our coffee hour or to remain in the sanctuary for a brief board update after our post-look.
The board would, in an effort to be more visible and transparent, we thought that after each monthly board meeting, the following Sunday after the service, we would make ourselves available and just give a brief update about the business of the congregation in the past month. So we're going to start that this morning. Members of the board are Anam and myself, Bruce and Annabelle, and Len Reeser and Ann Arfa, who are not with us this morning. So Annabelle's going to launch our briefings.
Well, there you can see, I'll start with a little bit about the pledge campaign. I'm on the board, I'm the secretary, and I'm helping with the pledge campaign this year. In any case, our chain is not very long. There are not many people listening, and I know the pledges will come in. They continue to support the Ministry of Salaries and utilities and everything that we need to run our programs. The most important information I have is that we've been in touch with Bill Bradford, the son of Julie and Brad Bradford. If you did not know them, they were long-term members of our church. They were very generous with the congregation, with UUA, and particularly with the Unitarian Universalist Service Committee. So before he died and before Julie passed, they decided to endow some money to our church. So we finally have the details of that. The amount of the Bradford Fund is $600,000, and we will be able to draw on that at 5% per year. So that is $30,000 a year of extra income that the Bradfords have provided for us in perpetuity. That's a major, wonderful thing. In addition, their children are running a Bradford Foundation, which will also support UUA, UUSC, and our congregation. And the way that will be set up is every spring, if our congregation identifies some particular need or programming, that we will apply to the foundation, and that will probably go on for a long time too. So we are really grateful to them for helping to ensure the long-term viability of this community. So that's my most important thing. The other thing is the board often talks about how do we get together, how do we socialize, how do we keep our friendships going. And Nam had a great idea. We're having a Dinners for 88, a potluck at the church on May 10th. And we're watching over everything that happens in the church. It's very interesting to be on the board, and if you are asked to participate, I would recommend the experience. You get to have your say, see how things are done, and also help with all of the efforts to make us a beloved community. Thank you. Coffee hour. Speaking to a very small group of you today.
Does the chain have a specific home?
I'm going to put it in the office.
Okay.
I won't be here next week, but Barbara will take care of it.
And I think there might be a couple of places in there.
Yes, I was going to say that.
And no, I can't believe like I blinked on the hymns. I can't believe I blinked on the hymns, playing the hymns.
Yeah, I